Okay, thank you for joining me. This is episode 2 of Mastering Microsoft. And today we're going to talk about the semantic index. It's not the same as the old company Semantic that made endpoint protection or backup. It's a word term like semantics. So semantic index. And then we'll talk about Microsoft 365 chat. My name is Jim Richardson. I'm the founder and CEO and chief technology visionary for Finchlam. And in today's agenda, we'll be talking about these things. So quickly, I'll remind you the elements of an AI prompt. We'll get into a little diagram of the semantic index and Microsoft Graph. I'll talk a little of the evolution of data and search, show you how to access the Microsoft 365 chat tool, and then elements of Microsoft 365 chat. And finally, we'll end with prompt practice. So remember from last episode, episode 1, we talked about elements of a prompt. And these are the 4 main elements I just want to remind you of that we give to the AI when we create our prompts. The first is to draft clear instructions. If you want it to find something specific, you have to give it clear instructions. Also, give it examples if you can. So if you're asking for a specific output, you can give it an example of how you want the output to be shown. So maybe you can say, write it like William Shakespeare would write it, or write it in a bulleted list, and here's an example. And you can paste that into your prompt as supporting data. The third is cues. Cues are basically add-ons to your instructions that give additional guidance to the AI. So if you're saying, create me a table showing revenue growth from the last 12 months, a cue might be use bar charts. Another cue might be make it blue in color. And then another cue might be I want it large so it's readable. So cues are basically extended instructions that are go above and beyond the basic instruction of what you're trying to do. And then lastly, this is optional, give your AI an out. So what that means is if it can't find the information, tell it. If you aren't sure of your answer, don't guess. And then that will prevent it from doing those hallucination things that we've heard in the news. So that's just a quick reminder of elements of a prompt. Now, first, before we get into everything, I just want to stop and do a quick speech, I guess, about AI as the evolution of search and written history. And books were mass produced. You know, we had the printing press and all that good stuff, and books were mass produced. But it was hard to find things in those books. So we invented the index. And when I went to school, I learned to go to the back of the book and find the index for the word I was looking for, and it would tell me the page where that word occurred. Then I could go to that page and find that word within its context. Then we digitized everything and the internet was invented. So we could scan papers, we could digitize pictures, all that good stuff. And back in the day, the first search index was keyword based. And there's a little trivia question for you up on the screen about the first one. I remember using Yahoo. In fact, I still have my Yahoo mail address in my personal life, but that was all index based. So I could type in a keyword and it would show me a result, but it had to match the keyword. What was genius about Google when they came along is they introduced importance. So they took the data and sort of found a way to make sense of it in a little bit, like a precursor to AI. And their mission was to organize the world's information. And they did a pretty good job of displacing all the early search indexes and becoming kind of the go-to search that we all used for a long time. But now AI, I believe, is going to take that over. The data, all the data, whether it's on the internet, whether it's your personal data, whether it's your business data, can be fed to AI models to perform skills like sentiment. What is the writer feeling in this document? Or vision recognition? What appears on this page beyond just the text? And then we can groom that data beyond just the words that are included in the book, but also the metadata of what it means, what the importance is, what the relationships are. And then when we ground the AI with your company data, we're basically doing the same thing. We're taking all of your Microsoft 365 data and we're ingesting it into an index. So basically, the AI can remember all of the things you've ever worked on and all the things your company has ever worked on and discussed and decided and created. And then you can ask it to reference, look up, analyze, and all the great things that AI promises it can do. So to me, AI is really just the evolution of indexing and searching, and it's a layer on top of both of those things that produce this amazing product. So here, let's talk about the index that's used in Microsoft 365 specifically for Copilot. So I mentioned it's not that company that made antivirus or backup. Semantic, it means word similarity, semantics. And basically, if you look at the graph here, what happens is your data is ingested into the Microsoft Graph, or it's made accessible to the Microsoft Graph. And what that means is that based on your user context, how you log in, you have rights to your documents and things that have been shared with you and things that are in groups that you belong to. But you don't get to see your coworkers' files unless they explicitly shared something with you or put it in a location that you both have access to. So what Microsoft has done is they've created two indexes, but basically the first one is a user-based index, and then the second one is a tenant-based index. So the tenant-based index stores all the documents in SharePoint, basically. As long as they're shared to two or more people, meaning they're in a team or a SharePoint file repository, then they'll be indexed. Now, your user index is everything that you engage with as an individual. So all the files you use in OneDrive, all of your chats and Teams, all of your email, and all of your meeting transcripts. Those get indexed and stored in your user index. And believe it or not, your user index is stored with your mailbox in Exchange. So that's how things get segregated in this AI world is there's things you can access, and then there's things that groups can access. And the graph, Microsoft Graph, is the API that uses your security context to filter out what you can and can't see. So when you make a request from Copilot, that request goes into the semantic index and says, show me the information that Jim has access to related to his prompt, and then it returns it back to me in the Copilot window. And you'll see at the bottom, we at FinchLoom highly recommend that you start adopting Microsoft Purview for information protection, because then you can go up into your document and just simply mark it with a sensitivity label. And we're going to be making labels like include in AI for public use, include in AI for internal use, and then do not use for AI. So you as the author can decide whether it gets ingested into the graph. That's what Purview information protection will do for you. So we recommend that highly. Also, there's a whole readiness engagement boot camp that we do where we look and see if you've got oversharing in your SharePoint environment, or if people have over permissions more than they should, or if there's problems with OneDrive permissioning or Teams permissioning with groups. So it's important that you get your security down straight so users don't have access to things that they shouldn't. And this is all handled by the Semantic Index and Microsoft Graph. Now let's talk about how to access Microsoft 365 chat, because this is the fun part. So let's before we do that, I'll talk about when to use Microsoft 365 chat. So this is really just a chat interface in a website, and it's built into Teams. I'll show you in a second. And you can use it to catch up on things, you can use it to create things, and you can use it to ask it things. And I put here this is unlimited chat GPT, but we noticed yesterday I used it a little too much, and I got a note that it is indeed limited, but it is premium or preferred chat GPT, and it's secured and private in your environment against your Microsoft 365 data. So remember I showed you last week, Microsoft Copilot is connected to the web. So you can use that to search the internet or use as your everyday AI companion. When you switch to work, you're now using Copilot for Microsoft 365. And specifically here is the chat, Microsoft 365 chat. So just remember that the difference between work and web is that work can read your data because you're logged in, and it only reads what you have access to. So another great use case is searching for information in your company, preparing you for the day ahead or the week ahead, or action items and follow-ups, deadlines, asking you, what did I miss? Really treat it like it's an assistant and ask it to do things on your behalf. So now where do you get to it? The first is in Microsoft Teams. If I load my Teams client, in this Teams client, right up here is a button that says Copilot. That's too bad that I can't show it to you, but that's the first place you can see it is in Teams. The second place you can see it is in the Copilot Edge pop-out, and that's this button up here. This is really convenient because you can pop it out while you're browsing the web or doing other work, and you can communicate with it while you're working. And then lastly, you can also access the full chat interface on the web. So if you just use a browser and go to Microsoft365.com/chat, then log into your account and you'll get the Copilot web interface that I was trying to show you in Teams. So this is what it looks like right here. Like I said, I prefer to use the pop-out in the Edge browser, so it's just a personal choice. Also, notice that mobile Copilot, there is a mobile app that's available today for iOS as of January, but it doesn't allow for a work login, so it's personal use only. If you want to use Microsoft 365 chat on a mobile device, just open your browser and type in the address, and you'll be able to do it then until they allow work login through the app. All right, let's point out a few elements of Microsoft 365 chat. The first is prompt guide or Copilot lab. So down at the bottom here, see this little twinkly thing. If I hover over it, it says prompt guide. And if you click on it, it opens up sort of a wizard that walks you through what you want to do. So if I say I want to ask something, I'll click ask. And then it gives you suggestions like how do I, or when's the next meeting I'm having with Gavin Zimmer, for example. And then I can submit that and it goes and looks at my work content and should return an answer to me. And while it's doing that, I'm going to point out a few other things on the interface here. Oh, look at that. How nice. So over down here at the bottom, it says 0 of 4,000. You get 4,000 characters to type in the window before you have to hit submit. It's just a limitation of the engine right now. So 4,000 characters is what you have total. Also, remember to use the / key. You see here it says type a / key to add people, files, and more. So if I put a /, it brings up people I work with, files I've recently used, meetings I've recently been in, and recent emails. And so you can very easily reference something like a meeting, and you can say meeting, HR finance meeting, and then say, was I mentioned? That's a good one. Let's see if they mentioned me in the meeting. If they recorded it, I should have an answer. So that's a good way to start looking through your first prompt exercise is, oh, I was mentioned. Look at that. So you can use the prompt guide as your starting point. Now, also, I want to point out that you have 30 responses per session. So it remembers everything that we wrote for the last 30 responses. I only have 2, but now I can continue and ask it to go back and rewrite the last sentence, but make it shorter and bulleted. I don't know, just showing you that you can go back and retune by asking it to do something differently. And it remembers the old information and takes the new information and combines it together. And also, I want to just tell you that you should pretend you're speaking naturally to somebody. You'll be surprised what it can understand. I've done some things that I thought it would never understand, like shorthand or slang, or even I tend to talk in all lowercase and simple words, and it seems to know sometimes what I'm trying to do. So do that. Also, this paper clip here is the same thing as the /, so use that. And then this is your plugins guide. Right now, we don't have any plugins, but we do have the ability to extend Copilot. And at someday, we may have plugins that extend to other third-party apps or do other jobs. So this is where you can do that at some point. All of your Microsoft 365 Copilot chats are saved. So if you go into that Microsoft 365 page /chat, you can go to the ... up at the top right, and you can see all of your previous Copilot chats, okay? You can even delete them. I don't know how to do that here in the pop-out. Maybe that's here, no? So you can only do that in the web edition. You can go view your previous chats and even delete them or clear them. All right, so the last thing I wanted to mention is the killer feature in here, this last column. It's about referencing things. So I mentioned the paperclip, or you can use the /. But let's say you have a Word document that you used before, and you like to make a new Word document based on, and then you use this attach to find, let's say, a file. And let's do our last newsletter from last week. So make a new Word document based on that old document, but change the name to Tesla in all cases and remove Finchland. Now, I'm using Microsoft 365 chat. So remember this, and that's why I did this on purpose. If you write a command in Microsoft 365 chat, it will return the completion in Microsoft 365 chat. Now, if you see how it says Tesla right there? If you want this to appear in Word, you have to go to Word and then issue the Copilot command. And we'll be talking about the Microsoft apps in a future episode. So for now, it'll just spit this all out as text, and you can copy that and paste it into your own Word document. But it did exactly what I said, is it took the last document as a reference, changed the names, and there's lots of things you can do here, because if you remember elements of a prompt, you need an instruction, you need examples, so this becomes your example. You need cues, tell it what to do with it, and give it outs. I didn't give it an out, but I could have. And then reiterate and try it, make it shorter, make it less than 10 sentences. And just keep playing with it until you get what you want. And remember, if you start to get repetitive, hit that new chat button to go back. So there's our shortened in 10 sentence. It works a whole lot better. Now I can use this for something. But I'm going to end this slide with a pro tip. Pro tip, with Windows, you can use your voice to dictate. And so when you're in Copilot, I like to use this one. This one's cool. I can use my voice to talk into the chat session. So if I put my mouse down here and push Windows H, it brings up Microsoft Speech, and this turns my voice into text. So now I can just talk my prompt and it will type it for me, and I don't have to spend all this time typing my prompt into the window. And that makes for a much faster and better experience, right, Copilot? Make sure you wait till it gets your last sentence in there before you stop. But basically, I said that, it typed it, and now I get my response. So that's my pro tip for the day. Windows H key. Pretty cool. All right, now let's do some prompt practice. Using what we've learned in today's episode, I'm going to start a new session, and let's use Copilot for Microsoft 365, and let's just do some prompt practice. So here's a common one, and they also give you some starting points up here. But what is my team working on? I remember in the old days, I used to work in a big company, and yeah, I kind of knew what people in my little office were working on in my cubicle area, but I didn't know what people down the hall were doing. So this is a great way to ask questions like that and have the AI maybe see what you have access to that you might have missed that it can catch you up on. So that's a great starting command. What is my team working on? And let it comb through and see what it can tell you. Remember, this only has rights, access to things that you have rights to, and it will always provide references to the document that's being accessed. And these documents may not all be in the same place. Here's a SharePoint, here's an email, here's a SharePoint, and so forth. So it combines all those different types of documents and data from the semantic index to provide this answer. Now, let's take this second prompt. What is the sales team working on? So let me do this and say, don't include financial or personal info, and it will go find what the sales team has been working on and tell me. And then I'm going to do this last one. I'm going to pre-stage it. Who does Gavin Zimmer report to? Gavin's our sales VP. I know that, but does the AI know it? So let's ask the AI as soon as it's done with the first one. So this, going back to my first question, what's the sales team working on? Remember that it only has access to things that I have access to. So the sales team may be working on stuff that they keep in a private Teams library for themselves. I can't see that. But if they record a transcript of a meeting that I'm invited to and they discuss it, I can see that. So there's a difference of knowing everything about the company versus what do you have access to. And different people asking the same question may get a different answer. So if Gavin, the VP of sales, asks the same question, he's going to have access to a whole different set of data than I do, and he'll get a different response. So here's the next one. This is about summarization. So sometimes I come into work and I've been on meetings all day and I just want to catch up with what I did, or I'm preparing for a meeting later and I just want to summarize the last 3 weeks so I can prepare for my next meeting. So here's a prompt. Let me clear my session, and let's ask, summarize the work I did with my coworker over the last 3 weeks. And it looks at everything I have access to and pulls back my action items, my emails, my meetings, my collaborating documents with AJ. So we worked on statements of work together. We've been talking together about Copilot Studio, an internal intranet, blah, blah, blah. All right, then I'm not sure where to start my day. What do I work on first? So let me clear my chat again and let me summarize all of my open action items. Now, the Copilot for Microsoft 365, the chat is a little weird. It thinks of meetings as action items. So it puts in action items here, meetings as well. But it's a really cool summarization of everything that you've worked on. You can even say things like, do I owe any work to anyone? And man, that's plain English, right? So that it makes sense of what I just said and turns that into actionable research and response. So let's see what that comes back with. And while we're waiting for that, oh, look at that. I found some information about pending approvals and reviews. So look at that. I got something I gotta follow up on after all. Now, another thing that our bosses like to do is they ask us for an update. So maybe once a week, they say, can you please send me an update or provide an update in our weekly meeting? And so again, let's let Copilot, our AI assistant, do the hard work and go out and research what I did last week and summarize that in a little email. You can even take it further and you can expand on it and include the top two priorities that I will work on next week, right? Give your boss a little something to get excited about for next week. And then it gives you something that you can copy and paste into an email, or you can read it off while you're on a meeting with your boss. All right, let's try the last one called Get Feedback on a PowerPoint Presentation. But I'm not going to use that exact prompt. Let's start vague and see if the AI can get to where we want it to go. So review a PowerPoint I made and give me uh, feedback on how it looks. Let's try that. Hey, that's the one. It says, if I found this document, is this the one? Yes, I'd like you to review this one. Please act like a presentation coach and give me important key topics to look at when presenting this and use bullets. So I've used all the components of a prompt. I gave it a specific example, I gave it an instruction, I gave it cues. So let's see what it comes up with. And then I'll ask it to be a little bit more specific. Be more specific about the content inside the PowerPoint. And let's see if it can get a little bit more specific. Wow, it went slide by slide and it reviewed my PowerPoint and told me, hey, you started with a clear agenda. You highlighted the importance. You have historical context, demonstration, examples and practice, and it's only a 30-minute presentation. So I think that that's good feedback on my presentation, and that's another good prompt to practice. And then the last thing I wanted to say is thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, where we're both publishing videos about mastering Microsoft and a newsletter on LinkedIn. Thanks again for joining. Take care. Have a nice day.